What if the reason every choice feels wrong is not because you are making wrong choices, but because you have never been taught how to choose? What if the problem is not the decision in front of you, but the noise inside you that has been screaming so loudly that you forgot what your own voice even sounds like? Right now, somewhere in your life, you are standing at a crossroads. You have two paths, maybe three, and every single one of them feels like a mistake waiting to happen. You choose left, you wonder about right. You choose right, you suffer about left. You stand still, and the world moves without you. This is not weakness, this is not confusion. This is what happens when a human being has been carrying every other person's opinion as if it were their own truth. But here is what nobody told you. The choice was never the problem. You were just never shown how to be still enough to hear your own answer. Stay with me today, because by the end of this, you will not just understand your choices differently, you will understand yourself differently. What if I told you that the greatest battle you will ever fight in your life is not happening outside of you? It is not in your workplace. It is not in your relationships. It is not in the circumstances that surround you. The greatest battle is happening right here, inside this mind. Every single moment, you are asked to make a decision. We live in a world that celebrates movement, action, speed, decide fast, move faster, and when you hesitate, when you pause, when you stand at the edge of a choice and feel that terrible sinking uncertainty, the world looks at you and calls you weak, indecisive, lost. But I want you to stop for one moment, just one moment, and I want you to ask yourself honestly, when was the last time a decision felt truly right? When was the last time you chose something, a career, a relationship, a direction in life, and felt complete peace with that choice? Not temporary excitement, not the relief of finally deciding, but genuine, quiet, unshakable peace. For most people, that moment is difficult to remember because most people have spent their entire lives making choices, but never once learning how to choose. And this is where the suffering begins. The human mind is a magnificent instrument, but like any instrument, it requires the right conditions to produce the right sound. You would not ask a violin to perform in the middle of a storm and expect beautiful music. Yet that is exactly what we do with our minds. We fill them with noise, with opinions, with social media, with comparisons, with fears, with memories of past failures. And then we stand in that storm and ask our minds to give us clarity. And when clarity does not come, we blame the decision. We say the choice feels wrong, when in reality, the instrument was never given the chance to play properly. Think about how you make decisions. Most people make decisions from one of two places: fear or desire, fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of being wrong, or desire for approval, desire for comfort, desire to escape discomfort as quickly as possible. And neither of these places, neither fear nor desire, is a stable foundation for any meaningful choice. A choice made from fear will always carry the shadow of that fear forward into the future. You will spend years in a career you chose because you were afraid, afraid of disappointing your parents, afraid of financial insecurity, afraid of what people would think if you chose differently. And then one morning, perhaps 10 years from now, perhaps 20, you will wake up and feel that something essential is missing, and you will not understand why. Because the choice looked logical, it looked safe, it looked right on the outside, but it was built on fear, and fear does not build homes. Fear only builds cages. Now I want to speak about something that very few people are willing to honestly examine, and that is the relationship between identity and decision-making. You see, every choice you make is not just a practical selection between options. Every choice is a statement about who you believe yourself to be. And if you do not know who you are truly deeply underneath all the roles you play and all the masks you wear, then every choice will feel like it belongs to someone else. This is why so many people feel wrong in their own lives, not because their circumstances are wrong, but because the person making the choices is a constructed version of themselves, assembled from other people's expectations, social conditioning, childhood experiences, and years of being told who they should become. When you do not know yourself, every road looks foreign. Every door you open leads to a room that does not feel like yours, and you keep searching, changing jobs, changing cities, changing relationships, believing that the next choice will finally be the right one, when the real work is not in finding the right external choice. The real work is in finding the right internal foundation from which to choose. Here is something I want you to sit with. There is a difference, a profound difference, between a choice that feels wrong because it is wrong for you and a choice that feels wrong because it is unfamiliar, uncomfortable, or difficult. Growth almost never feels comfortable. Transformation almost never feels safe. And yet we have trained ourselves to interpret discomfort as a signal to stop, to turn back, to choose the familiar thing again. But discomfort is not always danger. Sometimes discomfort is direction. Sometimes the thing that feels most wrong is the very thing your soul has been trying to reach for years. But your conditioned mind keeps pulling you away from it because it does not fit the picture of what your life was supposed to look like. This is the trap. And most people spend their entire lives inside it without ever realizing the trap exists. I want to talk about stillness now, because this is the part that is most misunderstood, and in my observation, it is the most important part. People believe that the answer to indecision is more information, more research, more advice, more thinking. So they read articles, they ask friends, they make lists of pros and cons, they consume more, and yet the clarity does not come. It gets further away, because the problem was never a lack of information. The problem was a lack of stillness. When the surface of water is disturbed, when waves are constantly moving across its face, you cannot see what is beneath it. But when the water becomes still, when there is no wind, no disturbance, no movement, suddenly you can see all the way to the bottom with perfect clarity. Your mind works the same way. The answers you are searching for outside yourself already exist within you, but you cannot access them because the surface is never still long enough for you to look. Stillness is not the absence of thought. Stillness is the state where you are no longer enslaved by your thoughts, where thoughts arise and pass like clouds moving across a sky, and you observe them without being carried away by them. This is a practice. It is not an accident. It is not something that happens to certain gifted people. It is a discipline that anyone who commits to it can develop. And when you develop it, when you genuinely access stillness before a decision, something remarkable happens. The noise becomes quiet, the fear becomes smaller, and from that quiet place, from that settled, grounded space, the right direction for you begins to reveal itself, not always dramatically, not always with certainty, but with enough clarity to take the next step. Because here is the truth about decision-making that nobody teaches you in school. You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to see clearly enough for the next step, and then the next, and then the next after that. The path reveals itself through honest movement, not through paralyzed planning. Now, I must say something that might be uncomfortable for some of you to hear. And I say it not to criticize, but because I believe honesty is one of the greatest forms of respect one human can offer another. Many of the choices that feel wrong in your life feel wrong because you are carrying something that does not belong to you. You are carrying your father's unfinished ambitions. You are carrying your mother's fears. You are carrying your community's definition of success. You are carrying your school's version of intelligence. You are carrying a portrait of who you should be, painted by 100 different hands over a lifetime, and you are trying to make decisions that fit that portrait. And every time a choice does not fit, every time your authentic self wants to go one direction and the portrait demands another, the choice feels wrong. Because your soul knows the portrait is not you, but your conditioning keeps insisting that you must fit inside it. The bravest thing you can do, the most radical, the most transformative, the most life-altering act available to any human being is to put down that portrait, to stop making choices based on who the world decided you should be, and to begin the slow, honest, sometimes terrifying process of discovering who you actually are. This is not a journey that completes in a weekend. This is not something a single book or a single conversation will accomplish. This is the work of a lifetime. But it is the only work that actually matters, because when you know who you are, when you have built a genuine relationship with your own inner self, then choices no longer carry that crippling weight of wrongness. They carry something else instead. They carry alignment, authenticity, a sense that even if this path is difficult, it is genuinely mine. And I want to address one more thing before I bring this to its conclusion. I want to address regret. Because for many of you, the reason every new choice feels wrong is because you are still bleeding from an old one. You made a decision in the past that hurt you or hurt someone you love, and that wound has not healed. And now you bring that wound into every new decision. You stand at every new crossroads carrying the weight of every road you wish you had not taken. But regret, when held properly, is not a punishment. Regret is information. Regret tells you something about your values, about what genuinely matters to you, about who you want to be going forward. The problem is that most people do not hold regret as information. They hold it as identity. They say, I am someone who makes wrong choices. I am someone who fails. I am someone who cannot be trusted with decisions about my own life. And once you adopt that identity, once you believe that story about yourself, then of course every choice feels wrong, because you have decided in advance that you are not capable of choosing correctly. This story is false, but it is remarkably persistent, and dismantling it requires the same thing everything else requires: honesty, stillness, and the courage to look at yourself without flinching. You are not a person who makes wrong choices. You are a person who was never taught how to choose. And those two things, those two sentences, are completely, fundamentally different. One is a verdict. The other is simply a gap in education that can be filled. You can learn, you can grow, you can develop the relationship with your inner self that makes decision-making feel less like walking through fog and more like moving in a direction that has genuine meaning for you. But it begins with one commitment, not to the perfect choice, not to the guaranteed outcome, not to the life that looks right from the outside. It begins with the commitment to know yourself, honestly, deeply, without illusion. To observe your own mind with the same patience and curiosity that a scientist brings to a great question. To practice stillness not as an escape from life, but as the deepest form of preparation for it. Because here is the final truth, and I want you to hear this clearly. No choice made from a place of genuine self-knowledge and honest stillness is ever truly wrong, even if it does not produce the outcome you hoped for, even if it leads you somewhere unexpected, even if the road becomes difficult in ways you did not anticipate. A choice made from your authentic self, from your real values, your real understanding, your real inner voice. That choice always carries something forward that a comfortable, safe, fear-based choice never can. It carries growth. It carries the accumulation of genuine experience. It carries the person you are becoming, not the person the world decided you should already be. So the next time you stand before a decision and every option feels wrong, do not immediately reach for more information, more advice, more noise. Instead, reach for stillness. Sit with the question, let the water settle, and listen, truly listen, to the voice beneath all the noise. That voice knows. It has always known. You simply have to become quiet enough to hear it. Every choice feeling wrong is not a sign of your weakness. It is a sign that you have been making decisions from places that are not truly yours, from fear, from conditioning, from identities constructed by others. The path forward is not finding the perfect choice. The path forward is finding yourself. Build stillness as a daily practice. Challenge the portrait the world has painted of you. Separate regret from identity and understand that the greatest decision you will ever make is the decision to know yourself honestly, because from that foundation, every other choice becomes not perfect, but authentic, and authentic is infinitely more valuable than perfect. You came into this world with your own inner compass. It has not broken. It has simply been buried under noise. Clear the noise, trust the compass, and walk forward, not with certainty, but with genuine alignment. That is enough. That has always been enough.